Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear. I'm down in one of my favorite canyons today and had to come in a back way today because one of the main trailheads was closed. So I'm about to go by this kind of like water treatment facility, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I have a knife review to do for you. Surprise, surprise. And I figured, why not do it while I'm kind of hiking along today. This is the Olamic Wayfarer 247s. I don't know if you're supposed to say 24/7 or 247, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere online, it might have been their website, when I was first looking at this knife like a couple of years ago, that they called it the 24/7 because it was supposed to be like their EDC model, like you have it on you 24/7. So I'm pretty sure that's why they call it that. Anyways, the Olamic Wayfarer is one of my favorite knives, period. I really dig the Wayfarer. I just like it so much for so many reasons, but specifically, I love me some Sheepscliffe. If you watched my last video on this knife, you'll see I kept calling it a sheep's foot. I had to make some edits because it's a Sheepscliffe. It's like a cross between a sheep's foot and a Wharncliffe. And I think it just looks so good. I don't know what's happening with my mustache right now. Maybe it's just something on the screen. Anyways, if my mustache looks bad, I apologize. I'm hiking, sue me. This knife is one of my favorite knives ever for a lot of reasons. But let me walk you through some of them. If you haven't seen my last videos on this knife, let me get you up to speed real quick. This is my third one. I've had two before this one. The first one I got, I sold to fund a firearm. The second one I sold to fund my Koenig Arius, which is actually my favorite knife, period. Like it even more than this. Not to throw any shade on this. I love this knife, but the Arius is my favorite. So it's that was worthwhile. And all three of the ones that I have owned have had the Sheepscliffe blade. It's, in my opinion, the best option for this knife. I'm pretty sure they offer it in 4 versions too. There's the Sheepscliffe, obviously. There's a Tanto, there's a drop point, and there's a harpoon. And I like them all. I think they all look really good, but my personal preference, as you can tell, is definitely this one. This knife is titanium construction. It's got a great thick but not too thick, very good EDC size blade stock. We've got a flat grind and a really nice swedge on it. We've got a flipper tab, which you can see is like skeletonized. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it's got that cutout in it, which I think looks really cool. It's probably just for looks. I guess, I don't know what else you would say that's for. Weight reduction, maybe. I don't know how much weight that's cutting out, but the flipper tab angle, I love it. It functions so well. The way that they've done their detent at Olamic on the 24/7 is just, oh, I love deploying this knife. It's so much fun to play with. And then not only is the flipper tab great, it's a flipper, obviously, but with the holes are greater than studs, I can also middle finger flip the knife, which, if you know me, you know, it's probably my favorite way to open a knife ever. It's just my preference. I really like middle finger flipping my knives open. So part of why this knife checks so many boxes so well for me is because not only does it deploy reliably, lock up solid, not have blade play, it's a sturdy titanium frame lock, but the fidget factor is awesome. Now, a lot of the time when I talk about fidget factor on knives, part of that is the way that they drop shut. On this one, let me get past the detent, it does not drop shut. I can, with some wrist, sure, but it's not like gravity free falling itself shut. It's just not the way it's dialed. This knife is more dialed for deployment than for closing, which is kind of cool in a lot of ways. But yeah, the way it deploys, it's so satisfying, the way it rockets out and just thuds shut. And I dig it so much. We've got a lock bar insert / over travel stop. And in that we've got a ceramic detent, and everything about it, it just functions so well. One thing I love too is, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's like this track, you probably can't. Inside the frame, there's a track that the blade stop rides on, and it's actually milled out internally. And then the blade stop is mounted on the blade itself. So it rides through that track, and then it comes to its stopping point. So there's no, like, if you look back here, you're not gonna find a blade stop anywhere. And it's really cool the way they were able to do that. From what I understand, it also helps them to get the maximum amount of blade length and like effective cutting edge because of the geometry of the way they're able to space that all out. Really, really cool. This one is their kinetic earth finish, which means it's got this cool kind of grainy texture to it. That's their kinetic. And then earth is the color. So it's this kind of bronze, brownish, anodized color. And I really dig bronze anodization. I like it better than most other colors of anodization. Not a fan of like purple and stuff like that on knives. It's just not my style. So this kind of goldish bronze, I really dig. We've got the sculpted backspacer. It's like sculpted hardware. I think they call it fancy pivots on the cart, which is funny. And then we've got the sculpted clip as well, just to tie it all in. And the hardware is the same color as the frame. I think it flows together really, really well. And then I'm super glad that I got the satin blade. It's my favorite blade finish, usually in general, but also from Olamic. I think they just do the satin on this M390 really well. It shows the grind lines, and it comes out looking fantastic. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the Ergos real quick, because this is in my top 3 favorite folding knives for Ergos ever. My favorite might be the Arius. The way the Arius goes in my hand is just incredible, but this feels even more locked in than an Arius. The Arius feels a little more neutral to me, and this feels like, I can't even really express it, and it probably won't come through for everybody if you try this knife, because like the size of my hands, the way that this foremost finger groove and then this curve back here fits in my hand, it could not fit better. It feels like it was molded to my hand particularly. And then the way we've got this bulge back here where it rests into my palm, and then I've got just a little bit of a thumb ramp with some well done jimping. This jimping does not bother me. Would I mind if it was just flat there? Probably not, frankly. I could take this jimping or leave it, but it's jimping that isn't a negative in my book, which is probably a positive. It just, man, in a saber grip, this knife could not be more perfect in my hand. What that means is in other grips, it's not the most comfortable, like for a draw cut. In reverse grip, it's surprisingly good. It's actually quite excellent in this grip, but I can feel that bump right there. It's not a hot spot. I can just feel that it's there. But the Ergos, my goodness. Also this clip, the way that it's finished, this clip I find doesn't love like thick pant material. Will it work on any pair of pants I have? Yes, but it's not like the most effective clip ever. But some people slam this pocket clip like it doesn't work. That's not been my experience. But in hand, of all the pocket clips I've ever felt on a knife, this feels the most like a knife doesn't have a pocket clip on it. It just feels like an extension of the knife handle itself, and it's so well rounded everywhere. Nothing on it is sharp, and the way that it sits nice and kind of flush to the knife, goodness, it's excellent. It's just so good. There's a plane going by. Anyways, Ergos, it's seriously one of the best knives ergonomically that I've ever experienced, and it's been the same on every Wayfarer that I've had. The first one was a lot like this one, except it had a couple of holes drilled, the speed holes, if you will. The next one I had, again, a lot like this one, but it had a coral inlay and a Damascus clip, which is why it was worth more than this one was, and I was able to sell it and get an Arius. But yeah, this knife, whew, in hand, it just shines like hardly anything else does. So yeah, action is like just, I would call it an 8 out of 10, because on deployment, it's a 10 out of 10. On going back in, would I like this more if it was like guillotine drop shutty? Yeah, I love that in knives. I would think that would be great. But I understand why it's not from an engineering standpoint. So call it an 8 out of 10. Ergos, for me, 10 out of 10. It's just, folding knives do not normally feel this good in my hands. Let's think, what else can I talk about? Aesthetics. I understand this might be a little bit of a polarizing knife design because it is like really designed. I think this knife is artistic. I can safely say that I consider this like an artistic expression. The way that everything is contoured and curved, the way that we've got this swoop here in the handle, I've heard some people complain about. I love it though. And I think this blade shape is one of the coolest looking blade shapes, period. I love the way they cut the hole. All of the design choices on this, just, they sit well with me. I really, really like it. In the looks department, I think it absolutely shines. Again, that's subjective, that's a personal call, but I think this looks a lot better than most of the other knives, if not all of the other knives in its price point. It's really, really cool to me. Speaking of which, I know I've mentioned this a little bit before, but these, I think, are around the $450 mark, brand new, something like that. Similar in price and materials and like construction and build quality, I would say, to the Chris Reeve knives Sebenza, to the Hinderer XM-18, to the Strider SNG. A little bit different, sure, than each of those in their own ways, but I think it belongs in that conversation. And to the people who like consider those the big three, and rightfully so, if you haven't experienced one of these and you love any one of those three, I think you should give this knife a try. It's just so great. It's coming from a company here in California in the US. Do they have some of their work done overseas? Yes. So if that's a disqualifier for you, then so be it. They have some of the production components of this knife take place in Italy, but they do a lot of the work on it here before it ultimately gets sold. It gets certainly worked on and touched here in California. And it's just a really nice, cool, awesome knife coming from really cool dudes. I don't know if there's women who work there too. I've met guys who work there. Coming from really cool people working here in the United States. And the quality, if I hold this side by side with an XM-18 or a Chris Reeve Sebenza or a Strider SNG, I would be hard pressed to tell you that any of those three knives feel nicer than this knife. The tolerances, the fit and finish, the aesthetic finishing, the like, just everything about this knife feels incredibly well done. And I've had 3 of them now, and every single one, the quality has been phenomenal. They also have an awesome warranty, like incredible warranty, where they, in every experience I've ever heard, people I didn't know and a few people that I did know well, who were able to use these knives hard enough to have something go wrong, even if it's just aesthetically, Olamic has taken great care of them. Plus, the way that they take care of their clients in giving you options to dress these up over time is really cool. I don't know off the top of my head of any other companies that you can send your knife to after you've had it for a year, bought it the way you wanted it then, and say, hey, I'd like to add some speed holes have this anodized a different color and get a Damascus clip for it. And they'll do it for you. For some of those things, you got to pay for them, obviously. But if you like their really cool, like, what do they call it? Lightning strike ano or lightning ano, something like that. Anyways, they're really cool multicolored ano that they do. You can send them the knife. You can pay them a reasonable fee and they'll do it there for you, keeping your warranty intact, keeping everything going the way that it should be on your knife. So the fact that you can send it straight to them to have really cool, what would typically kind of be like aftermarket mods done on it, I just think that's awesome. I really dig it. Will I ever have anything done on this one? I suppose time will tell. I think this may finally be the one that I'm in a position to keep for a long time, and it's the right spec that I want to keep it for a very long time. So maybe in a year I decide I want a bunch of speed holes drilled in this one to reduce weight and make it look different and cooler. Maybe I don't, but I have that option with Olamic, which is really cool. And they make it easy. They take great care of their people. And I just think that's awesome about them. So my full review of the Olamic Wayfarer 247s Sheepscliffe is that it's one of my favorite knives. It has been for a long time. Even though I haven't owned one consistently, it's been one of my favorite high-end, to me high-end, folders available on the market. There's so much that I love about it. Everything I just went over. The Ergos are one of the best in my opinion. The aesthetics, the looks of it, incredible in my opinion. The fit and finish, the quality, fantastic. The after purchase service you get from them, incredible. The performance of it, I don't think I even mentioned. Cutting with this knife, to me, it's incredible. They treat their M390 really well. I've had no issues with edge retention or anything performance related on the M390 that they do. Sorry, it's a little steep here. Yeah, no issues at all. Holds an edge for a great long time. And maybe it's because of the Ergos, but the way that I feel I have so much control over the knife when I'm actually using it, it's bonkers to me. Like this knife in real use, when I'm bearing down and gripping hard and going through significant amounts of material, it's incredibly good. Like just mind-blowingly good in actual use for like what feels like such a fancy knife. So a lot of the times, the knives that I like using the most, there are exceptions, but most of the knives that I want to like get out and hard use are going to be grippy G10 and liner locks or compression locks, and that's like my comfort zone for using a knife. But there are a few full titanium knives that come along every now and then that function as well, if not better, than those knives. Too often I get full titanium knives that are fun and cool and feel unique, and they feel nicer because it's all metal, and like the sensation of value might seem a little bit better on those, or the sensation of worth, I should say. But like when it gets down to it, I don't like using them as much as I like using my G10 or my Carta or carbon knives. But a really well done titanium frame lock, titanium on both sides. This doesn't even have internal milling, no holes drilled, nothing. It's just solid titanium slabs, titanium backspacer, titanium clip, titanium hardware. Everything on this knife is titanium except for the blade, which is M390. So for it to be comprised of such like high-end materials and have such beautiful fit and finish and to function as well as it does at the end of the day, it's just, I don't know how you beat that. Like I said, it's not my favorite knife that exists. I still, if I could only pick my Arius or this, people have asked, I'd pick the Arius. The Arius to me is just a notch beyond this, but it's much closer than I think a lot of people would assume. I know that Olamic is fairly well known, and if you're in the knife community, you probably know who Olamic is. You might have even owned one. They've got a few models. I love the Swish as well. That's the only other one that I've owned, but I've handled the Busker, the Whippersnapper, the Rainmaker. I want them all. If I had the money, I'd buy them all today. Not positive I'm coming the right way, but I hope I am. Actually, yeah, I think I went this way. We'll find out. Maybe I'll get lost. Anyways, every Olamic I've ever handled or owned has been really, really nice and very well done and finished extremely well. And yeah, I think they should be more well known than they are. And for all of the CRK Sebenzas and Hinderer XM-18s and Strider SNGs and SMFs that I see all the time, I feel like I should, this was definitely the wrong way, I should be seeing more of these in a higher ratio to what I do see. Because this is the one I'd pick over any of those. I own one. But if you're telling me that's my budget to spend on a nice titanium frame lock, and those are my options, it's those three, and this one being the fourth, this one, no doubt, 100%, it's the one I want the most. So take that for whatever it's worth to you. Obviously, a lot of this is preference and taste and the way that it works for my hands and the way that it performs for me, but some of it is less subjective. I don't know, read into it what you will. This is my favorite in that range, and I can say that with confidence after handling at least each of those options, giving some of them a relatively long-term try, and owning a couple of this one and seeing the consistency between each of the ones that I've owned and loving and enjoying it every single time that I've had it in my hand. So there you have it. That'll be my full review on the Olamic Wayfarer 247s. And if you want to see more kind of glamour shots of this one, watch my first impressions. That whole thing was close-ups of the knife, and you can see it in a little better detail, although I hope this is coming through pretty well on here as well. But yeah, this has been fun. This knife isn't going anywhere, at least for a long while. So thanks for checking it out.